The Wattage Ride highlights. Yes, 22 and a half minutes long. You can say, how can a highlight video be 22 minutes long? I don't know either. But I took the trouble to edit this thing that was like an hour and 35 minutes. So, I don't know. I guess I'm just really fascinated by my own bike riding and everyone else around me on these bike rides. The Wattage Ride up in McKinney, Texas. So, the scenario here is that John is off the front. John Summer, my teammate. And I think there was one other guy with him, gravel guy. Sorry, I don't remember his name. John told me his name, but I didn't know him. Independent guy, so he's not on a local team, from what I understand. He's wearing his gravel kit or whatever kit. And I'll point him out later when he's actually near me, because we do end up catching this breakaway. You can see the map in the top left. So this is my first time to do my updated overlay that includes meters left till the finish line, because this is actually a group ride that has a finish line. Many group rides don't. Another attractive feature of this particular ride is the lack of traffic lights and stops. So that means if you're off the front, generally speaking, you might be able to maintain your status off the front. And it's also treated like a group ride in the sense that there's prizes at the end. Lattes for the top three. So you can see that we're catching the break up there at the very top, those small silhouettes. Toby in front of me, designated ride leader along with his teammate Randy, both of whom happened to be on my team last year but are on different teams this year, but we're sponsored by the same shop. So kind of sister clubs, sort of. Anyway, here's John, and there's Gravel Guy right there on the right. So I think we're all back together here. It was a low wind day. Usually in the summer in Texas, we have the wind blowing from the south, but I want to say all the flags I saw were limp. Yes, great word, limp. And, what is this? The one time I go to the front, I got to put the footage up. And so what happened during this ride is that John repeatedly made some of these subtle off the front attacks. So that's one thing John does. If you've ridden with him, he doesn't jump out of the saddle and hit 1,000 watts for 5 seconds to make a jump. He just kind of rolls off the front, seated, arrow, and so forth. And I think that's actually a good strategy, something you can think about. You can see, I don't know what I'm doing here, but one thing about being on a group ride sometimes is that it's a group ride. You want to get some exercise in, not necessarily trying to make an attack. And, there's this balance here. If you're on a group ride and you got, a teammate off the front, do you just sit in, or how do you handle it? Oftentimes, this ride comes out of the Cadence shop. So obviously most numbers are usually from Cadence, and they're in this fluorescent striped gray kit. Just passing right there, almost every guy in this ride's in a Cadence kit. But anyway, another Cadence kit and so forth. So it's kind of it's lower numbers for the ride today, because today is the Oklahoma City Pro-Am, and a lot of guys who might have been on this ride are racing up in Oklahoma. And there's Lynn off the front, teammate. So my teammates are in the red, yellow, and black. We have 4 of us total. Me, John, there's Mike on the right, and Lynn, he's on the front right now. I'm sorry for all this bouncing of the camera. For one, there's a lot of chip seal here, but it shouldn't be bouncing this much. I had to buy a new protective case because my old one broke, so it's sort of the thing that the GoPro sits in, and I had to add some tape to it to increase the friction fit to make it not move, but I think that's failing. I'll try to fix that later. So this is when John, eventually we catch up to Lynn there, and there's one, I guess, Cadence rider off the front here, and then John puts in, one of these little moves, and I just happened to be on his wheel, so I thought I would follow there. And yeah, that was Gravel Guy off the front before John went by him. And Cadence there, sorry, I don't know a lot of the names of the Cadence guys. Not that they would want me using their names or whatever, or, I have to debate that. Do I use people's names or not use people's names? Initials, nicknames, I don't know. But dang, he looks buff, doesn't he? Like lots of upper body strength on him. And, but he quickly responded, Cadence, and he's on our wheel. So John is pulling and just keeping the pace up going a little bit uphill, so close to 450 watts, 400 watts in John's draft going uphill. And we've seen a little bit of a reaction here. So this guy, he's got more energy left sitting in our draft, and even though he marked us, he's ready to go off the front and do a little work himself. Now, looking at the video, I don't think I even knew I was off the front. I thought I was just riding second wheel. Didn't realize such a big gap had opened up. This is a pattern. This happens to me in races too, where I'm off the front or in a breakaway, and I don't even know that I'm in a breakaway. So increasing awareness, good trait to develop in racing bikes. You can see the map there on the left. You see at the very bottom of the map sort of this like point or a penis or something, right there. The bottom of that is where things usually kick off. And so again, John making a little move here, and I thought, well, took that corner pretty fast. If I can get on John's wheel, dream scenario would be a breakaway of me and John, or me, John, and one cadence rider. And so right there's that gap, and I noticed the cadence rider behind me, and I thought, I shouldn't close it to John. Let somebody else close it to John. Let John ride away, but if he does close it, I'll get on his wheel, which I did. And Gravel Guy is bringing the group back up, covering that gap, and we are all back together again. So, and again, me going on the front here, this would normally be a crosswind in this section, but the winds were so light that you really don't have much of a crosswind at all. And taking this turn, you can see in the bottom left is the MPA, maximal power available, xert metric, which says how much power I could output at that particular moment given the recent efforts that I have done. That number decreases when I go above threshold, and so later on you'll see that number has decreased when I've put in a harder effort. This is a really great opportunity on this particular ride to break away. Usually a headwind, and then you take a quick right, and there's a crosswind, and then another. So this is the part where you would turn from headwind to crosswind with a normal southerly wind, and then take another left and another headwind. And of course, if it's colder weather, it'll be a tailwind. In other words, the wind coming from the north. And I tried to make these cuts related to things that were actually happening in the quote-unquote group ride race. And John was off the front, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe he's not. I can't remember. But let's see, where are we? I'm pretty sure he's off the front. I don't think he is. Anyway, yeah, we have a section coming up. Yeah, he was off the front. Solo, right there. And so this is one of the couple places where you might have to stop on the ride related to traffic, cross traffic. So John was off the front solo, and that was now the second time at least where he'd been off the front, and we pulled him back because of traffic concerns, where the traffic went against him. I joked that Cadence radioed a couple guys in cars to stop his breakaway. But anyway, it's a friendly ride. It's not, people aren't, it's friendly. And this is one of the steepest kicker in terms of climb on this ride. And again, good opportunity to break away and make a move for people that can only go a certain level going up this climb. But in my experience, the gaps that do open up here usually don't lead to a breakaway. Just, I've only done it a few times, so limited experience, but usually there is a gap of some kind there. And actually, this is the part that is the very key moment, and you can see off the front is at least one rider. John just rolled away off the front, my team, and he's going to bridge to the two guys that are up there. And so the two guys are Gravel Guy and a Cadence rider. And so Lynn is thinking about, I don't know, I think he was thinking about bridging up there. So I was letting him go. Cadence rider is quickly on his wheel And so I'm on his wheel ready to respond. Toby coming up behind me, closing that gap. And then we have a situation where a breakaway is up the road again. Cadence is now in the breakaway. They're represented. You can see how crappy I take these turns. There's a lot of loose gravel in these turns. This is also a ride where you need to be really watching for potholes and cracks in the pavement, uneven pavement. There have been crashes, so sometimes if I'm off to the right, off to the left a little bit, it's just to give myself a little more space. And so, anyway, Cadence is represented, an independent rider, Gravel Guy is represented, and we're represented in that breakaway. And now we're not yet to the turnaround that I talked about before. If you see on the map up there, we have to go down into that V. At the very bottom of the V, where we turn back north, is where things often get a little interesting. And I was talking with Lynn. I was like, "What are we doing here? Are we supposed to work on the front? Not supposed to work on the front?" And he was like, "Whatever, just ride, do whatever you want." And so that's what happens when you really you only have like 2 teams, a smaller group than normal, 2 clubs, 2 race teams. And so getting in some efforts just for the heck of it. It's a group ride, fitness. And a little bit of a hard pull, if I recall, going up this slight incline. And Cadence, I would say, did most of the pacemaking, and arguably, that should be the case, given their superior numbers. But we wanted to be near the front, and here's Lynn, teammate, on the front again. And maybe it was around here that I asked him exactly what he was thinking we ought to be doing. I think it's fun to treat, if you have a group ride that's a race group ride, or a race simulation, it's fun to treat it that way. If people don't treat it that way and don't use team tactics, it's just not as fun. We can all just go do laps somewhere, or whatever, sit on the trainer. Sometimes in the process of doing this sort of race simulation, you do sacrifice some things, like maybe you want to get a certain kind of workout or a certain TSS or whatever on the ride. So this is that right turn that I was talking about at the bottom of the V. And I've crashed through this turn before. When a crash went off the course. Oh yeah, we're not quite there yet. We're not quite to that turn. We're getting close though. And so at this point, the breakaway was super far up the road. It did not seem possible to bring back the breakaway at this point. And so, top 3 places up the road, just like a race, if your podium's the top 3, what exactly are you competing for at this point? Well, 4th place. This is the part where I'd crashed before, where I went off the road, took the line wrong, a little bit of gravel. This part up here can be a little sketchy when wet. Link can tell you about that. Previous video in the past of him crashing right in front of me. Through this turn coming up right here, this is where he crashed before. So we have a little bit of an unexpected surprise, foreshadowing, coming up here. Oh wow, look, a trailer in the middle of the road, blocking the entire road. Yeah, they didn't leave the door open for us. So we had to go around. And I don't know what they were doing here. Like, are they moving it away, condemning it? Are they bought used, installing on their property? Obviously, the right turn is difficult. Coming out here with the width of the road or something. I don't know what's going on. And, if we had any pretense of catching the breakaway at this point, I think we gave up on that as we kind of messed around getting through this. I hop on my bike here, get going a little bit, and it sounds like I've got playing cards going through my spokes. Turns out I had a big twig in there, and chunking that out of there, and then heading back up the road. So usually this is the part where it really is quote-unquote on fire in terms of attacks on this ride. So with this countdown timer I have now, I can look at how much is left. So in my mind, whenever I've done this, I've always thought it's a long, long way. Well, 13K is not that far, even though I don't really think in K. But since in sprints, a lot of times we think about meters, 200 meters, 300 meters, 400 meters. I think it's useful to be able to see on this course where 200 meters is, 300 meters, and 400 meters is in terms of a countdown here. So Caden's taking up the pacemaking here, and we are about to make this left-hand turn, which is the final road to the finish. And normally it would be a bit of a crosswind, but because of low winds today, wind wasn't so much a factor. But this is that left-hand turn I was talking about. So you just follow this road to the end, and that's the end of the ride in approximately 9K. And you got to watch the potholes here. You'll see that in just a second. This road is in terrible shape. You can see up ahead they're going to be doing some construction on the road. And just doing a little dodging here, getting on Toby's wheel. He's putting in a bit of an effort here. If we look behind us, we can see the guys are strung out a little bit. And a little bit of a jump cut there because, boom, Lynn attacks. I had talked with Lynn a little bit earlier saying, wouldn't it be great if the two of us were able to get away from this group? So in my mind, he goes here and I'm thinking, should I jump and try to go solo with him and get away from these guys? Went through my mind. Problem with that is it'd be very easy for someone to jump on my wheel, being second wheel here. And there's just the chance that I would be bringing everyone to him. Why not let Lynn go up the road, make these guys work, maybe Lynn can get away, and then we'll have two people in the top four. So the breakaway long up ahead, we can't see the breakaway at this point. We haven't seen them in a long time. And let Lynn go up there, and if they drag him back, then consider responding. If they don't drag him back, good. That puts us in a good position as well. So Lynn told me afterwards that, he looked back, he noticed that there was a pretty substantial gap, and he decided to keep going. This coming up here is a really important climb. Here in Texas, we don't have huge mountains, in this part of Texas anyway. And so just even these little climbs can play an important role. So, being in Toby's draft here, doing 500 watts, it's not easy going up this climb following him. It's putting in a substantial effort, but you can see that he is very quickly reducing the gap to Lynn. And at this point, I'm thinking, well, Racing 101 says, you have a guy off the front on your team, there's a catch. Maybe put in a little dig myself and get off the front. And there might not be anyone to respond. And sure enough, there was not a response. There was enough of a gap with the guys behind that were putting in an effort going up that hill. And so also Racing 101 says one of the best places to attack is right at the crest of a hill. People have measured their efforts, and it's tough. People are tired then. So I'm fast forwarding through this, and while I was writing this, I was like, why did I do that? I'm tired. I don't want to be doing this TT effort, putting myself in the hurt zone a little bit. You can see that my MPA is falling quite substantially. My heart rate is really up. So this is a hard effort for me. There was one guy I could see chasing in the distance. I'd looked back a couple of times. I didn't know who he was. Of course, it must have been a Cadence rider. But as this kept going, looks like, looking back now, after initially he made some gains, it looks like perhaps he went back to the group. It's hard to say. So here, I didn't know what was going on. Construction, went around a few cars. There's the breakaway. So, breakaway. Is this fair play catch? Probably not. In a normal wattage ride, this wouldn't have happened. I don't think I would have caught them solo. I looked at the gaps on Strava Flyby, and I want to say the biggest gap over us was about a minute 20 or so. They substantially improved their gap with the trailer. Before then, they were about a minute ahead, and I think they gained about an extra 20 seconds via the trailer in the middle of the road. I went back and looked at what happened with the group behind. me, and actually at the time we start here, they had already gotten onto the back of the train of trucks or vehicles that were waiting. So they were actually, when this starts, they started as well, but they were behind some vehicles. And I don't know if they could see us or not, but uh, this was sort of after the fact. I didn't know that they were that close. Although you can see looking back, you can't see them, so they're not that close. So John, we're getting to the close to the end here, 1.5K. John is putting in an effort on the front. Sort of in this scenario, as we've done in the past, he might be the lead out guy for me, and I would be more of the sprint guy at the end. This is a gravel guy right behind me, and the cadence rider right behind him. So as I was riding here, I was thinking, do I really want these two guys behind me? I'm not that familiar with these two guys. And I decided I didn't want to be second in this train. I wanted to be third or fourth in the train. Therefore, I could respond to the guys in front of me and not be caught unawares by an attack from behind. John, who's been doing the pacemaking in the front, um, working hard, being in all the moves and breakaway efforts on the entire ride, really the man of the match, so to speak, during the ride, uh, in my humble opinion. There may be arguments. Gravel Guy was very strong. Apparently, Gravel Guy did most of the pacemaking in their breakaway. Very extremely strong rider. So we're down to 400 meters, and this is approaching the final sprint, which is, sorry about just having the rear view here. My GoPro ran out of battery on the front, and it's an uphill sprint. So you can see the group there. I think that's the group behind now. You can see way back there. Anyway, I decided to go and go for a little bit. So, less than 200 meters now. And I look back and I'm like, oh, they're not even going. Anticlimactic. Doesn't even, and not really fair, I caught up to them in traffic, stopped by construction workers, stuff. So definitely a big asterisk. But it was a fun ride. We had a good time. Nobody got hurt. Nobody crashed. And this is one of the more, I think, maybe the most fun ride in the area. It's a good ride. Lots of guys do it. And especially when we get a lot of teams out with different representation, it makes it much more tactical and much more fun. But overall, even though low numbers, today was a fun ride. Thanks, guys.